When it comes to choosing monsters in D&D games, I have a habit of just sticking with a lot of the 5th edition official stuff from the Monster Manual, from Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, from Volo's Guide to Monsters, and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, both of which are updated in Mordenkainen Presents Monsters of the Multiverse, and I tend to borrow mostly from there. But I heard a few people say really good things about Tome of Beasts, and I saw that it had been added to D&D Beyond, and I play online, mostly with Roll20, but D&D Beyond for the stat blocks, and I thought I'd take a look. So I treated myself the other day and fell in love with a lot of the monster suggestions. So here's a bunch I've handpicked that I think would work really well in a Ravenloft campaign. Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. So as I said in the intro, today I'm going to be talking about Tome of Beasts, the 2023 edition via D&D Beyond. That's where I got it from. I believe obviously there's an older edition out there, so for those of you familiar with the older edition, some of this info, I don't know to the extent of what they changed, so some of this might not line up. Tome of Beasts is a massive, basically, edition of monsters. There's over 400. It's by Kobold Press. One thing I want to say really early on, there's no paid promotion here. I'm simply doing this because I bought it and liked it. Hopefully the folks at Kobold Press will appreciate the, I guess, free publicity. But yeah, they've not paid me anything to do this or anything like that, so I just wanted to say that up front. Originally I had a list of 20. I thought I'm going to whittle this down to 10. And I really struggled to whittle it down to 10, so I've settled on 15, which I know is a lot, but hopefully there's a good variety for, you know, some of the monsters I suggest could be suitable for multiple domains, so hopefully if you're running like a Ravenloft domain hopping campaign, you can use a good number of them. And I obviously, with that in mind, try to choose monsters that can be used in multiple domains, or more generally, or perhaps they're wandering the mists between domains. I didn't want to choose, as tempting as it was, there were some that were really suitable for like just one domain, but I thought, well, that's not great. If you're not running that domain, that's of no use to. So I've tried to choose monsters that are good for at least 2 or 3. And some of them, if you're watching this and you're not running a Ravenloft game, but you watch my videos because you're running or thinking of running Curse of Strahd, some of these could be suitable for a Curse of Strahd game and in the domain of Barovia, so have a look and see what you think. I'm going to run through them all A to Z, just because that's how I did it in my notes, and that way I'm not picking favourites. I think it's a pretty decent order anyway. I've got 2 screens. I've got my notes over here, and I've got stat blocks over here, so if you see my face doing that, that's why. And there's a bonus at the end where I basically do a long list of monsters that work really well with just one domain, a desert domain, which I'll get to later. Let's get to it. Number 1, Corpse Mound. This is challenge rating 11. Really reminds me of the Zombie Clot from Van Richten's Guide. It's got some really cool abilities. Absorb the dead, so if there's a dead creature near it that isn't the constructor undead, it basically gets absorbed by the mound and even regains some HP. That's really cool. Noxious Aura is kind of familiar if you've run not just the zombie clots, but also things like ghouls and ghasts. Anyone who's near it can be poisoned because of the smell. I really like this one, Zombie Drop. So you can choose to drop zombies as extra minions. That's brilliant. Well, drop corpses that then rise as zombies is the actual wording. But that's really great. So if your players are fighting this alone and they're having too easy a time, drop some extra minions. And Envelop, which I think only happens if they hit the same target, that's large or smaller, with both of its slam attacks. It can envelop them. Groovy. And where would this be suitable? Folkovnia. Immediately thought of Folkovnia. So when I ran Folkovnia, I ran the Zombie Clot, and that was great, but this could be good as like a higher level alternative or something a bit different if your players have already fought Zombie Clots. Or use both. Why not both? Maybe not at the same time, but use both, if you get what I mean, at different times if you're running Folkovnia. And I don't know, there's something about it that makes me think of Darkon as well. Probably just something to do with Alazalin Rex. You'd be behind something like this. Number 2, a Dissimortuum. I think that's how it's pronounced. This is challenge rating 7. It's got some very grisly art of this dude who's got 3 arms. I thought it was a mistake at first, or which wasn't counting them properly, but no, he actually has 3 arms. He's made by a necromancer in the lore for it. It has an ability called Terrifying Mask, where people can be frightened of it, which is handy, I suppose, if he wants to, if they're freaked out by what he's doing, or he wants people to be scared away by him. And he can even drop a magic item. I think there's 2 magic items in Tome of Beasts, and I'm assuming this is one of them. It's a Cursed Mask. Anyone who's foolish enough to put it on takes necrotic damage. If they fail a saving throw, they're dominated by the mask, and then they start having periods that they black out and they can't account for, and they're basically, during that time, gathering components needed to build a new body for the Dissimortuum. So that's pretty rad. And in terms of domains, the one that jumped to me immediately, because there's a whole section in the lore talking about how they bring plagues, could be a really good tie-in to Rechainmelo, maybe, because that's basically the domain of plagues and rats and overall grossness. Number 3, Fearsmith. This is challenge rating 10. I love the art. The art is like really weird and really intense. And it's got some cool abilities. I'm probably going to say that with every single monster. Sorry if I say cool abilities every single time. Distortion Gaze. If they fail the wisdom saving throw, they become disoriented, can't take dash disengage actions, it moves for the first time on its turn, must succeed on a dex save or fall prone. And unless you're surprised, you can choose to avert your eyes to avoid that, which kind of reminds me, I think that's Medusa from the Monster Manual has a similar thing where you can choose to avert your eyes, but obviously your attacks or abilities may not be as good because you're not looking at it properly. It's got a hidden eye, so it has advantage on saving throws being blinded. Heart-stopping stare. Fail the saving throw and you take psychic damage and are stunned. And the Fearsmith regains HP. Nice. And it's got a few spells as well, things like Charm Person and Command. Oh, and the lore information says that it likes to fight with other Fae, so maybe this isn't a standalone enemy, but something that appears with some minions as well. And the two places I thought of immediately, I think this would be really cool as like a carnival. Someone who joins the carnival with all, best intentions, but maybe they're someone who's out to take down Isolde, the carnival's leader. It is described as being a Fae, so that fits with the lore that Fae creatures are sent after Isolde to terrorize the carnival and annoy her, basically. And it just basically looks like something you find at a carnival, and I can just see it like mask on most of the time, and then when it finally makes its move, it removes the mask, and it's like, whoa, that's not real. That's not regular. And Demonleo as well. I think it's just because of the mask connection. I don't know how you would tie it in lore-wise, but I can just see it being a monster that just turns up at the mass ball and then removes its mask, and everyone freaks out. Moving on. Number 4, Fext. Challenge rating 6. I love the art for this. It is the coolest thing I've ever seen. She looks terrifying. I was gonna cut it because I didn't think it really fit with the lore or wasn't really Ravenlofty, but I don't know. There's something about it I just had to keep in. It's a former warlock who's, I think, chosen to be made into this by its patron. What did the lore say again? Yeah, wholly dedicated to their patron, and it functions as an enforcer, bodyguard, or assassin. So I guess they choose to do it, or maybe you could twist the lore to be like a warlock who fails the patron gets to turn into one or something like that. Eldritch Weapons means it does additional force damage. Patron's Blessing means that its AC includes its charisma modifier. Patron's Might is a recharge ability. Take a ton of psychic damage and are frightened. It's just really cool. And I saw someone in the comments say that this version doesn't have it, but I'm guessing an older version of Tome of Beasts had it where she could cast spells as well. So there's a spell list, and if you look in the comments, if you buy it on D&D Beyond, on the comments there, someone's got a spell list as well, so that could be a cool addition. And in terms of what domains, well, it kind of depends on where there are Dark Lords who are patrons. I've been thinking of doing a Ravenloft Warlock patrons video, something like that. Ebonbane in the Shadowlands immediately jumps to mind. I'm actually have one of my players is a paladin who took some warlock levels, and Ebonbane is their patron, and they're going to go to the Shadowlands at one point. I saw somewhere that Darkon, Azalin from Darkon, Azalin Rex the Lich, could be a possible patron for one of the patron subclasses. And I don't know if this fits, but I get a vibe that Lady of the Ravens, which is one of the Sea of Sorrows islands, I think, could be a fit as well. Number 5, Ghost Knight. This is challenge rating 7. These, I think, would just be really good to use if your players are high level like mine are. Skeletons are obviously barely make a scratch these days. Whites can still be bothersome, but you want something a little bit tougher. Then you've got these dudes. They have Warhorse Skeleton Mounts. That's what it says in the stat block in the lore info. Necrotic Weapons means it does additional necrotic damage, and if it charges at least 20 feet in a straight line, it can get the mount to do a bonus action. No, sorry. It can use this bonus action to command its mount to make one melee weapon attack against a creature as a reaction. So the rider makes a bonus action, the horse does a reaction, but it essentially means the horse gets an additional attack. And then it's got regular sort of multi-attack with battle axe and a lance. And then where to put it? Well, Shadowlands again. I think a lot of these are going to be good for the Shadowlands, which is great for me because I'm going to run the Shadowlands soon. very excited about doing that. But to be honest with you, you can put them anywhere. They strike me as something that's, you've got skeletons of the weak, undead soldier type minion, and then wights are the next level up, and then these are the next level up again. I guess if you're running Sithicus, these could be the knights that I think... Sithicus isn't a 5th edition Domain of Dread, but if you're, say, using it, I might use it at one point and attempted to, and that's Lord Soth's domain. You know, you could potentially have them as the soldiers that kind of work under him. Number 6, Ghoul variants. Now, I'm a big fan of using ghouls, ghasts, and I can't remember which source it's from, but there's another one called Shadow Ghast I've used once or twice. But this has multiple ghoul variants. I'm not going to share all of them, but I will share a few that stood out to me, which were Darakhul, the Imperial Ghoul, and the Iron Ghoul. So these are challenge rating 3, 4, and 5 respectively. The Darakhul is probably the most flexible, in terms of like it has a lot more it can do than your regular ghouls that just sort of claw and bite and use weapons or whatever. It can disguise itself, and when it does, its stench goes away as well, so that's cool. So it could potentially disguise itself as a regular humanoid, act as a sort of friend and an ally to the players, and then maybe lead them to an ambush full of ghouls and ghasts, and oh no, it's a ghoul as well. How did we not see that? That kind of thing. It's also got a war pick as a weapon. Big fan of that weapon. Not many monsters use it as far as I'm aware. And there's a whole thing about Darakhul fever as well. So if you get bitten by a Darakhul, there's a whole thing about how your hit point maximum is reduced, and it can only really be cured by either fighting it off a few times in a row, or greater restoration cures it, lesser restoration helps to cure it insofar as saving throws to fight it off with advantage. But if you die with that, you can come back. You either die, or you can come back as a Ghoul, Ghast, or a Darakhul yourself. The art looked to me like it's casting a spell. And as far as I know, I'm looking at the stat block, it doesn't look like it's got any sort of spell-like abilities. So I don't know, I'd be tempted to give it a few spells as well, or some sort of like range, like Eldritch Blast kind of ability. Looks like it's got that kind of thing. And then the Imperial Ghoul and the Iron Ghoul are just stronger ghouls that wear armor. The Imperial Ghoul is the classic bite and claw, but also that hits harder as well. It also has a crossbow. And then the Iron Ghoul is similar. It also has a glaive as a weapon. And I thought to myself, the glaive, what's the point of the glaive? Because the glaive looks really weak. You know, surely it's going to always favour the bite. But then I thought it'd be cool if it could be in like a back row. If you've got like an army of ghouls, you have the Imperial Ghouls on the front row, the Iron Ghouls directly behind them, and then they're doing the glaive attacks initially, or maybe just using the crossbow. I think the glaive attack would be better. And then once the Imperial Ghouls are defeated and the PCs approach closer, then the Iron Ghoul could then switch to Bite and Claw, because that's stronger and more effective. Domains. The two ghoul-focused domains that strike me are Gastria and the Sea of Sorrows. My players have visited Gastria, but they haven't really it's kind of like a pit stop and a quick visit a few times, so I didn't do anything with the Dark Lord of that island. And the Shadowlands is the other one. I can see the Shadowlands is perfect, because my understanding is that the Dark Lord there, his main minions are ghouls, and it's the land of like knights and heroes. So to have these ghouls that are wearing armor fighting as sort of soldiers in battle, that's perfect in my opinion. Number 7, Grim Jester. So this was a bit of a weird choice. I did consider cutting it because it's a bit of a weird and silly one. But so it depends on how serious your Ravenloft is, how serious your horror games are. If you like to keep it very serious, and this might be a bit of a bad choice that's kind of a bit over the top, but I just found this absolutely hilarious. It's just a skeleton, what can I say? Its abilities are brilliant as well. So there's an ability called Last Laugh. Unless it is destroyed in a manner amusing to the god of death that created it, the Grim Jester gains a new body 1d20 days later. That's brilliant. So the only way you can defeat this thing for good is to kill it in a funny way. I'm just imagining something out of a cartoon like the Falling Piano or something like that. And it's got to be the god that created it. So, you know, what if that's a god that only finds certain things funny? I don't know. There's a lot you can have fun with there and play with there. It's got a really mean ability called Mock the Dying. Death saving throws made within 60 feet of it have disadvantage. That's really mean, really cruel, but also really funny. Funny for the DM, really not that funny for the players, especially if they're attached to their characters. Killing Joke. The Grim Jester tells an ancient nihilistic joke to one creature it can see. Wisdom saving throw. Fall prone in a fit of laughter, becoming incapacitated. And if it fails by 5 or more, it's reduced to 0 hit points. And it can repeat the saving throw, but if it fails, it takes necrotic damage. So that's pretty brutal. It reminds me of some sort of weird combination of Vicious Mockery and Tasha's, what's it called? Tasha's Hideous Laughter. That just looks really good. And it's got some spells as well, and somebody suggested some additional stronger ones in the comments as well. So that's cool if you want to buff it a bit more. Joker's Shuffle is a bonus action. It can change places with a creature within 60 feet of it, and it's like a magical illusion to look and sound like the other creature. So if the players think that this thing is kind of moved, and then they attack it, and then they realize they're actually attacking someone else, not the target. So we could do a few things here. It could like target a fellow monster that's disposable, I guess, and people target that instead, but it's still alive. Or if you want to be really cruel, I think it's going to be a bit confusing metagaming wise if it just targets a PC, but have it target an NPC ally, and then all your players are fighting this, what they think is the Jester, and is actually one of their allies, and then maybe the ally then falls down defeated, and they're like, uh-oh, and then the thing's still around and still attacking as well. I think that's great. And it says in the lore for them that they're like chaotic items, like Wands of Wonder and Deck of Many Things, so you can have a lot of fun with that. In terms of domains, I was hitting Mrpedia looking at famous jesters from the Ravenloft setting, and oh my gosh, there's one called Puncheron who appeared in Risibolos, which does get mentioned in the minor domains list in Van Richten's guide. I don't know too much about it. I think I've only just glanced over it once or twice, but I think it's something about how the whole domain is like this stage, and there's something about a Strahd von Zorevich ventriloquist doll, stuff like that. If you're not running that but want it somewhere else, it strikes me as something that would just rock up to the carnival one day and act as like a friend but cause all sorts of chaos. Or Darkon, maybe see it as part of Azalin Rex's court. I don't think it's officially Azalin has a Jester, but Azalin has a lot of minions and lieutenants. Why not throw this weird Jester in there? Why not? Number 8, Lich Hound. Lich Hound is challenge rating 4, and it's basically like this spectral ghost dog. Woo. It's got abilities like Blood Sense, where it can pinpoint the location of creatures that aren't constructs or undead within 60 feet of it. Sense the general direction of such creatures within 1 mile of it, so the players can struggle to hide from one of these. And an Eerie Howl, which causes people to be frightened. You know, stuff like that always helps. And I can just see it being a pet of Azalin Rex in Darkon or anywhere else where there's a Lich. I know there's a few other Liches in the Ravenloft setting. Kazan was one in the past, that's Barovia. Exathanta in the Amber Temple, so hey, if you want to give Exathanta a dog, here's your chance. And I'm sure there's a few more beyond that. Number 9, Necrohydra. Challenge rating 9, so tougher than a regular Hydra, created by a Necromancer. Very similar to a regular Hydra, but it's got some cool undead flavour. I think it says something about how the heads are... Yeah, Necromancer uses the heads of humanoids that are familiar to those that will face the Necrohydra. So heroes, beloved leaders, or officers, loved ones, or close allies. That's really cruel. Very Ravenloft. Dreadful Dirge is one of its abilities. It lets out a wail. People are frightened. It must take a bonus action to continue wailing. And Necrotic Bile, a 30-foot cone of necrotic... Oh, poison and necrotic damage. Nice. And where could this be suitable? I actually thought Valachan. So Valachan doesn't really, not so much for the Necromancer element, but because I ran Valachan, I did a whole video on it. And in the Trial of Hearts, I used the Mist Hunters, Ravenloft Mist Hunters info, and there's a Hydra in that. So you could swap it out for the Necrohydra. Maybe the heads are people who failed the Trial of Hearts in the past. That could be good flavour. Or the Shadowlands, I believe there's a Necromancer in the Shadowlands. It could be members of the Circle, the group of knights there who have previously been defeated and now fighting other members of the Circle. And it's got the heads of their fallen comrades. That's grim and very cool. Number 10, Risen Reaver. This is challenge rating 7. This is basically a muscly in terms of muscle tissue, not as in like, you know, muscly. A dude who looks like he's just muscle, bits of muscle with weapons sticking out of him. That is so cool. He's got blood sense similar to the Lich Hound I talked about earlier, and can just basically do lots of attacks with its fists. It's got bonus action dash it can do. An infused arsenal, if somebody attacks it with a non-magical weapon, there's a chance that it can absorb the weapon. And then it also has resistance of that type of damage. But then when it does attacks, it can do additional amounts of damage based on that weapon. So that's great. I love that. And in terms of where to put it, this goes against the lore a little bit, but Lemordia, I can see it being like a sort of creation of Victor Mordenheim that didn't work out. and now it's this crazed warrior running around with bits of weapons sticking out of it. I think that'd be really cool. But the lore does say that it's an undead creature born from a warrior fallen on the battlefield, so you might want to be thinking of something like that instead. Number 11, Spectral Guardian and Arcane Guardian. These are challenge rating 6 and 8 respectively. And I've actually added one. I'm running, as I record this, I'm running Castle Tristan Noira in Forlorn, and I've added one of these because I just thought it'd be really cool. It fits with that lore as well, because part of they're sort of bound to a place, and there's the main villain, spoiler alert for Forlorn and Tristan at Blank and stuff, is he's bound to the place. It makes sense there could be other spirits that are bound to the place and can't leave the castle. And if they leave the area, they lose some of their abilities, like Spectral Blade if they're the warrior type, and Spectral Burst if they are the arcane wizard type. And the Arcane Guardian version is slightly stronger and it has some spells it can cast as well. In terms of where to put it, Shadowlands makes sense. Shadowlands is getting a lot of love in this video. Sorry about that. Forlorn in the castle, as just mentioned, and just anywhere. They seem pretty flexible. A bit like the Ghost Knight I talked about earlier. You can kind of put these wherever and they will work well, I think. Number 12, Swarm of Wolf Spirits. I love the art for this. They are a challenge rating 6 swarm. There's not a lot to them combat-wise, other than they can bite twice, and they have a chilling howl that can frighten players. And if they fail the saving throw by a lot, they'll get exhausted as well, so that's pretty brutal. And I can see these working really well in Mordant, which is Ghost Country, and they're Ghost Wolves. And also I mentioned Forlorn. There's a moment that can happen, like an event, where these ghostly wolves attack, and I didn't see this stat block, so I ran them as regular wolves. But if I were to do it again, I would totally run this sort of swarm of ghostly wolves instead. It would have worked perfectly. Number 13, Treacle. I believe this is the lowest challenge rating of all of them. It's just a quarter. It is an ooze that disguises itself as a little animal in trouble. And then, like in the art, it shows this poor little rabbit that's trapped, and then the players go, "Oh, poor little rabbit, I'll help you." "Oh no, you're an ooze." Although actually, I don't think they even find out straight away, because I think it says something here that they kind of latch onto the body and then wait until the target goes to sleep and then they attack. So that could be a really cool thing to do. So they, the Good Samaritan of your group helps the rabbit that's injured. The ooze attaches to itself, and then you, when they have a long rest, you narrate that this, maybe one of the other players, whoever's on watch, sees this ooze killing this player, and oh no, gotta help them out. So yes, they have abilities so they can mimic innocence, and it doesn't have to be an animal. It can be a long lost toy or anything really, by the sounds of it. Whatever, a beast or an object the creature finds least threatening. And then Blood Drain, where it hasn't got a good huge to hit bonus, but the target loses 2d4 HP due to blood loss. Yeah, so it would hold on. It would wait until it has an opportunity to do that. It would do that, like, it wouldn't do that straight away, because then it's like, get off me. Where could this thing live? I don't know, I struggled with this one. I wondered Haslan could be a good shout. Maybe it's like a magical experiment that's gone wrong. This is like an ooze combined with an animal, and this was the result, or something like that. Otherwise, just, I mean, it's essentially, it's got Mimic style ability, so anywhere you think a Mimic could work quite well, I guess could be an option. Number 14, this has got one of those weird letters where it looks like an A and an E combined. I think that's like an A sound, so I think it's Vættir. Please correct me if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I always, whenever I see an A and E together, I want to go like A, because it looks like an A followed by an E, so is it Vættir? I don't know. These basically are like undead Vikings. Straight away reminded me of the Draugr from Skyrim. I haven't played Skyrim for years, but back in the day I was addicted to it and played it a lot. Did a lot of playthroughs of that game, I love that game. There's some cool abilities like Grave Goods Sense, pinpoint the location of any creature wearing or carrying one of its personal items or grave goods within 60 feet of it, and sense the general direction within 1 mile of it. So someone takes something from its grave, and then this dude's like, "Hey, I know where you are, I'm coming for you." If it's destroyed, it regains the body after 24 hours, but it doesn't function if it's put to rest, for example, by returning its remains to its burial mound. In addition to the various different attacks it can do, it's got Disorienting Gaze, which can knock somebody incapacitated, and it moves in a random direction when it moves. After that, that's cool. And Corpse Breath as well, so it can do like a little cone attack that does poison damage and poisons people as well. The lore for it says that it haunts those who disrespect the wild or ancient laws and traditions. On the traditions front, reminds me of Cartacus. I believe there's a lot of tradition there with the bards and stuff. Mordant, I think it says the people there honour tradition really strictly. I don't know, it also gives me a Tempest vibe. You could even put it on the Sea of Sorrows and have a Viking ship as one of just like a random encounter they encounter while they're sailing the Sea of Sorrows. All these undead Vikings on it. I think that would be so, so cool. And number 15 to end us off, Vengeful Spirit, of which there are 3 variants. The Beheaded, Vengeful Spirit, Immolated, and Strangled. They're all challenge rating 4, and because of the different types, the way they were killed in life, their attacks are flavoured. Well, the Essence of Rage, I think, is the same across all 3, and it's basically like a ranged or melee attack that does a huge bit of psychic damage, and the target becomes enraged if it doesn't pass a charisma saving throw. Oh, and then it attacks a nearest creature that isn't a spirit. That's really cool. Reminds me of like the Confuse ability in like Final Fantasy games. And then they each have an ability that matches their death. So Decapitation for the Beheaded. If they fail a saving throw, they lose a head. That's very brutal. They have to be below half their HP maximum though at the time. The Immolated one, if they fail the saving throw, they take fire damage. And it continues, so it's basically they're ignited, and then it has to use its action, or another creature uses its action to douse the fire. And the other one, for the Strangled variation, it basically starts suffocating until the spirit dies, or it's lifted with remove curse or dispel magic. Nice. Where would these live? Again, I'm thinking of Forlorn. I was actually thinking of, so one of the ghosts is somebody who was killed by lynching, hanging. So I thought of actually changing her stat block to be the Strangled Vengeful Spirit. I think that would work really well. So I'm considering that at the moment. But I don't know, you can kind of put these anywhere. It doesn't have to just be Forlorn. I know that Forlorn's quite specific. There might be an instance where one of these works well in another domain. Right, I've got a bonus now. None of the ones I mentioned in the list above were Har'Akir, the desert domain. I don't actually have plans to run Har'Akir. But when I perused the list of monsters, trying to pick monsters that were suitable, I found a ton that were desert themed or that could work well for Har'Akir. So I'm basically going to go through this list really quickly of monsters from Tome of Beasts that could work well for Har'Akir specifically. And I've got images for all of them, and I'm going to put them here, and we're just going to fire through them really quickly. Starting with, in alphabetical order, Accursed Defiler, Angatra, Anubian, Cactid, Corrupted Ashabti. Is that how Ashabti's pronounced? Dune Mimic, Edimu, Elemental Locus, Grey Thirster, Hogbui. I'm massacring the pronunciation of these, I'm really sorry. Idolic Deity, Amalqui, an Oozasis. Yes, that's an oasis, that's actually an ooze. That's pretty cool. Possessed Pillar, Rotting Wind, Sand Hag, Sand Silhouette. I meant to give this warning at the beginning. One of them is a spider, so for the arachnophobes, please close your eyes. 3, 2, 1. Sand Spider. Sarcophagus Slime, a swarm of Manabane Scarabs, an Ashabti Royal Guard, Venomous Mummy, and save the complicated spelling one for last. A Vesiculosa? Vesiculosa. I think I nailed that. Probably haven't, but I think I have. There are a couple of others I saw as well that were desert themed, but I don't think they really fit Ravenloft. For example, there was one that was a fae, one that was a giant, and one that was a dragon. But I'll show the pictures anyway, and you might want to look into them and make a decision just on your own. And while I said that a lot of these could be used for Har'Akir, I think a good chunk of them could probably be used for Hazlan. Hazlan isn't a desert, but it gives me a barren wasteland vibe. So I'm running Hazlan soon. I'm probably going to use some of these, especially the weird ones like the Oozasis and the Dune Mimic. I think they would work really well in Hazlan. They do sound like magical experiments that have gone wrong. There were loads more I wanted to include, but didn't. Did I miss any that you think work perfectly for Ravenloft? Please drop a comment, let me know your recommendations. Let me know if you use something in this list, where you used it in a Domain of Dread. Could be handy for me, could be handy for other people watching this video, reading the comments. Or if you find monsters that I didn't include in this list that work well in other domains, that have their lore ties into the domain, that could work really well, please let me know. Upcoming Ravenloft videos, I'm not sure. I'm probably going to do my Forlorn Part 2 video soon. I'm recording this quite early. I'm trying to sort of schedule some videos ahead now so that I'm not just always like rushing to get videos out every week. But I think as I'm recording this, hopefully Forlorn will be wrapped up soon. If it isn't by the time this goes out, So Forlorn Part 2, where I talk about Castle Tristanoira. I'm not sure what else, probably just more NPC videos, another list of minor villains, another list of good NPCs, potential allies of the players, stuff like that I know my viewers appreciate, and it's quite cool to dig into the lore, and I enjoy it. And I'll wrap up there. Thank you, Miss Wanderers. Huh. Thought I saw or heard something. Ah, left my camera on, didn't I?